Discussion. Call for the question, please. Come out of executive. Motion made by Councilman Red Eagle, seconded by Chairman Waller.
Councilman Red Eagle?
Yes.
Councilman Rebar?
Yes.
Chairman Waller?
Yes.
Secretary Yates?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray?
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We're back to call to order of the chair. I would like to reach out to the council. We had some discussions in our executive. Out of clarification, we're going to have one item taken to our budget committee, and then I would entertain any other motion at this time that will come out of executive council.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we ask our attorney, Mr. Pipestem, to report on the number one, to report on the bonds and the status of bonds for the 1,602 wells. Number two, to get an answer in writing. The Osage Mineral Council and the nation are not responsible for plugging of any orphan wells. That responsibility we feel is under the federal government. And number three, well, I'm gonna scratch number three. I chatted with Lacey, which she agreed with you, Mr. Second Chair, that both that old account and the one now are both under the nation for the $3 million.
Yes, sir.
It'll be just two questions.
So I would like to entertain the bond status motion, Councilman Redcorn. I think we had to separate them, don't we?
No, they can, we're just taking it into account.
I'll second that.
Second. I have a motion on the floor by Councilman Redcorn, seconded by Councilman Revard to request the bond status on the orphan wells, approximately 1,600, and deliver that request to our attorney. With that, call for a question.
Councilman Rebar?
Yes.
Chairman Waller?
Excuse me, yes. You brought it.
Secretary Yates?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray?
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn?
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Yes, sir. I'd like to have a motion on the liability request letter. Council.
Second, to ask our attorney again to get in writing, the Osage Mineral Council and the Osage Nation are not responsible for plugging of any wells in Osage County. That responsibility is under the federal government.
In our opinion.
In our opinion.
Just cut that off.
Okay.
I need a second.
Second.
Second, I have a motion on the floor by Councilman Redcorn, second by Councilwoman Foreman. Any other discussion? Would that call for the question, Rick?
Chairman Waller?
Yes.
Secretary Yates?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray?
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn?
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle?
Yes.
Councilman Rebar?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Council.
Thank you, Chair. Chairman, I'd like to make a resolution that for any Osage Mineral Council member be allowed to communicate with the DMD. But for any action from the DMD, the Osage Mineral Council needs to approve that action.
I need a second. I have a second. I have a motion on the floor by Councilman Redcorn, second by Councilwoman Gray. Specifically in response to our effort, we're going to reach out to DMD, and our question was is that we need to know the parameters of what they're allowed to do before we get into an actual function of request. So this opens the door to any of us, and I've had some comments by the council to reach out to them. Call for the question there.
Secretary Yates?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle.
Yes.
Councilman Rebar,
Yes.
Chairman Waller.
Yes, and in clarity, the DMD request of the council is going to be over many issues. One, of course, is the contracts and grants appropriated by them to help us on our infrastructure and also our gas systems. And the other request we'll also see in this deliverables, what else we will be looking at infrastructure wise. With that being said, is there any other motions we need, Council?
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to ask Paul Rebar to work with the Osage Nation Procurement Officer, Tammy Leeper, and submit an RFP for a plugging engineer / manager.
Under the contract?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I need a second.
Second.
I have a second. A motion on the floor by Councilman Redcorn, seconded by Councilwoman Foreman, to allow Councilman, to request availability of a engineer, petroleum weapon,
RFP.
to,
Paul
write
Rebar,
RFP.
work with Tammy Leeper and submit an RFP.
For a,
Petroleum engineer.
Plugging engineer /
Petroleum engineer. They gotta be certified to sign.
is it plugging in?
petroleum engineer / plugging manager.
Second, are you okay with that?
Yes, second.
Discussion? Second.
What account will that be coming out of?
The $3 million, we have
Right.
500,000 discretionary to spend. 1.25 is for emergency plugging, 1.25 were non-emergency plugins. And according to Candy Thomas, that 500,000 is to be spent however our committee and the council deems appropriate.
Thank you. Call for the question.
Councilwoman Foreman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar.
Yes.
Chairman Waller,
Yes.
Secretary Yates.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Give me just a moment. Yes, thank you very much. Any other effort, Councilwoman?
I thought Tully was going to, but I'll go ahead and make a motion to send our staffing, additional staffing needs to the budget committee to work out.
Do I need that in resolution form to allow my council's budget committee to look at the hiring? I didn't think I did because we actually have those positions available. So without that, we're gonna ask the budget committee to work with you and your office to look at the job description element. We want to specify it to help on many things, but you will be directing that. Without that necessary, we don't need a resolution, it will go to our budget committee.
Okay.
I thought the action was that we discussed that it would go to budget and then we were replacing
Yes,
for.
yeah, well, she'll have to help you on some of the
Yeah,
items.
I'm writing
Do you need a resolution?
no, I'm thinking. it
No,
was
I know
put
you
into
don't.
The committee.
Not
yeah.
to just spend money,
Yeah.
that's.
No,
Okay, we will.
Yes.
Yeah, with it, though.
Sorry,
Council.
I'm unclear. Are you saying once you make your determination, you're gonna go make it happen with Lacey?
No,
Or are you gonna come back to the council for?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because there will have to be make sure where it got the line item, and then you all will
Resolution.
see what the description will be.
I mean,
Hopefully,
I'm happier either way. If we do it, and you go ahead and make it happen.
my goal
We need
is,
a resolution now.
yeah, my goal is to go ahead and get it prepared and ready for our next council meeting.
okay, seeing that, council, I'd like to wrap up the top of the agenda. Councilman Redcorn, did you need the 3 consultants for enhanced
Yes.
recovery?
Thank you,
The
Chairman.
floor is yours.
In the board booklet, our staff submitted a position description for the EOR expert / consultant.
Where's that at?
Is
I
this-
don't have it.
You
That's
just-
item 4E.
They just got it.
Oh,
Go ahead, sir.
In there, you'll see that the RR expert, which is in the grant, this is actually printed from the grant application. And it's the EOR expert consultant. And they'll lead the identification and selection of optimal development and for EOR projects in the Osage. They're going to provide that specialized expertise in areas of design, implementing, and monitoring. They're going to specialize, they're going to guide the team there of advanced studies, do a support field tests and other EOR tasks carried out by our EOR team, provide consultation and on any work and issues in progress, and participate in presentations, and that'll be for like the summit. Skills, this is our high level skill, a minimum of a master's in petroleum or reservoir engineering related field, PhD. 15 years relevant experience in EOR. Significant experience in oil field operations and production. Good knowledge in published record studies for EOR projects.
Council, that's in form of a motion.
Yes.
I'll second.
And second, I have a motion on the floor by Councilman Redcorn, second by Councilman Rebar. Open discussion, Councilman Red Eagle.
No.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Second chair, please.
You're asking for 3 consultants?
I'm sorry, we've made the determination to just go with one,
Okay.
just for clarity.
And that's coming out of what budget?
The Enhanced Oil Recovery Grant,
Oh, so your grant?
Yes.
Okay.
this person will be a contractor, not an employee.
Okay, now I'm confused. I thought the request for proposal, you at least send it out, you get at least 3 proposals for a consultant.
Yes, we'll work with Tammy Leeper,
Okay.
To RFP it out.
RFP, and then it
For
goes.
one position.
Yes,
Yeah, for
sir.
one position, okay,
No.
good.
And you're fine with that second?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I'd like to call for the question.
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar.
Yes.
Chairman Waller,
Yes.
Second Chair Yates,
Yes.
Councilwoman Corbin.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Council, that takes care of that, but I'd like to go into the old business non-disclosure agreement. Councilman Red Eagle.
Thank you, Chairman. I passed out some little piece of paper there on Mike Terry non-disclosure agreement. I discussed this with Addie before the meeting.
Yes.
And we went on this before. For some reason or another, the NDA went to the Osage Nation. Wasn't supposed to. I like to just reroute it again to our attorney. And this came out of War Well Committee to sign, so Mr. Perry can travel from Denver to here on his own time and money and explain the patent pending downhole gas separation invention idea to our council. Now this, according to what I've been learning from Mr. Redcorn and Bill Lynn, there's a lot of CBM wells, as Mr. Rebar will agree. And I don't think it would hurt to hear him come here on his own time to show us his process. So I'm gonna make a motion that we send it again, the NDA to our attorney.
Yes.
Go to the Attorney General, only the Attorney General alone. And so we get process started again.
In form of a motion? Yes.
a second.
Second, discussion?
Yes, Chairman, just for all our information, I've listened in, I've participated in the Orphan Well Committee meetings where this has been discussed, and I've not seen this technology, but from what I understand, they've got technology, patent pending, that they can run down in a well, and then assume it's on a string of tubing, and they can put it at or near the perforations. And as some of you, if not all of you know, the column of fluid in a well will hold back, create hydrostatic pressure, typically a half a pound per foot. It's on a 2,000-foot well.
Weight of the
If it
fluid.
was full of fluid, that's holding back 1,000 pounds, holding 1,000 pounds of pressure on your formation. And to alleviate that, and to produce that gas, you've got to get that water off of it by pumping it out of the hole and disposing of it. This device, I've not seen it, they claim, and they're willing to try it out on a couple of orphaned wells, I think at their own expense, if the committee picks some out for them. This device, run on tubing, would be set close or near the perforations where the gas is coming out of, and it will only let gas enter the tool. Water will not enter it. Only gas can get through it, and no fluid, and that gas will just come right on out without having to deal with the water. And they claim, I think and I was in the call-in on some of these meetings that this was discussed. In some cases, they claim that it's increased the production by 2 or 3-fold. So, as a protection, this motion that we just made to have the Attorney General is just to give them the protection and comfort that they need to be able to tell us more about the tool, and having us agree to keep it confidentiality, at least until the patent's been issued. That's all. I'm just gonna clarify as to how I understood it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. 2 things. Number 1, this did come out of the Orphan Well Committee. We recommended it go to AG for review. Meantime, we got communication from Candy Thomas. We cannot use federal money to sponsor a privately owned technology. So she said we cannot pay for it, we cannot sponsor it out of our committee. Which I said we won't.
Yes, sir.
And I sent an email out to the team, it's just done, we're not gonna do it anymore. Just to be clear, if we approve this NDA for Wilson to review, it is sponsored by the OMC, not Orphan Well. And Bill Lynn I told Bill, I said, you'll need your 10% to run this, that you're paid out of the OMC, not the Orphan Well. He gets 90% of his salary out of Orphan Well, he gets 10 out of the general mineral. So he agreed to that. The last thing I want to say on an NDA is, very familiar with these. Once we sign this, there might be some problems with, we can never develop, say in 15 years, we find a tool that's similar, or the tribe does, or as a nation, we can't participate in that because we signed this NDA.
Well,
So we want to make sure that that language is taken care of. We don't want to inhibit ourselves, and that's just something for our attorney to know. Because, I mean, being in research and development, I saw these all the time. And some guys are very, very apprehensive to sign an NDA, because that just pretty much eliminates their ability to go into that area and profit. Just a caution here, but I think it's a good project, but I'm gonna vote out of it, out of the Mineral Council, and not the Orphan Well. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Council.
well, I've got real concern about that because I wouldn't want to, just because they've got a patent pending on this technology, we won't go out and try to reproduce their technology, but if we shouldn't be restricted, and I want to make sure the NDA does not restrict us from pursuing other means to do the same thing this technology does. Yeah, we won't take their exact technology and go out and try to develop it on our own, but we shouldn't be prevented from talking to other companies to accomplish the same end that this does. So the wording of that non-disclosure agreement, that we are asking our council to review, we need to make sure that we're not tying our hands to that extent.
Very appreciative. Go ahead, Derek.
I have to agree with Paul, with Councilmember Rehart. This is just like anyone else coming up here and giving us a business proposal, wanting us to sign, but to look at new technologies, which that happens all day long in business. But I just wanna make sure that, they'll say, well, we showed Osage, now you can't look at anyone else's, which is ridiculous. So I just think that the wording needs to be something comfortable for all of us to go through.
And I want to interject something, is that I agree with all of you. The other effort is that you're correct, and the next question is even the effort was brought up that they would like to go into some test locations. Well, the NDA should be site-specific of this location, this effort, because I will go ahead and tell you, I've seen some other products. They haven't got here yet, but their patents are pending too. But I do feel like that NDA can only be encompassing their product and not the others, so I agree with that.
I guess just to be clear, we're sending this to Mr. Pipes here.
Yes, sir.
He's gonna come back with
Yes,
a
sir.
recommendation.
As the motion states. Let's call for the question. Oh,
I
one
thought it
more.
was Attorney General or Pipestem?
Pipestem's gonna take it to the Attorney General, hand deliver it, hand response, because we had another NDA that the nation turned down that we would have approved if applicable. And I'm glad we brought that up, because I also need the council to know is that some of these efforts are gonna come right back to your plugging, which you have done a great job on, I understand. But this, even when everyone's asking you 100 questions about what you're doing, but I want to go and state that you're doing exactly what we said. We're going to review these before we spend a plugging dollar to get them off the lease. Secondly, is any kind of new prospects, process, or anything else will be recommended by your committee to the council. Councilwoman.
And I just want, last meeting, we had some information, and it doesn't quite have to do with this, but,
Then don't bring it up.
well, it does have to do with NDA. Did, the assistant chief, did he sign an NDA?
We cannot respond to what he's done or not done. I'd rather we refrain from that.
Well, I think it's something we should know.
Well,
Go ahead.
we can ask Mr. Pipes to determine that for us.
Yeah.
That'd be another answer for us.
Yeah, check your emails. I know you've been busy getting sick. Call for the question.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar,
Yes,
Chairman Waller,
Yes.
Secretary Yates,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray. Yes. Motion passes.
Motion passes, thank you. I'd like to go to item B, Spyglass Energy Letter. Councilman Rivard, you discussed this with us. Please, you have the floor.
yeah, thank you, Chairman. At our last meeting, we adopted a resolution which has not yet been prepared or completed yet for the chairman's signature, but it was passed unanimously for the council to support to support mine and others' desires to try to protect some of these wells that Spyglass is responsible for plugging, to try to get delaying the plugging so that we can evaluate their future potential before they're plugged. The letter, I think, the superintendent was present at the time, said she needed something in writing from Spyglass making this request. So our council was instructed by us to draft that letter for Spyglass to submit to us and to the BIA, which he did. He circulated it a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. I looked at it and it was very vague. He admitted it was very vague, just bare bones. So I've taken it and included some specifics. I actually made reference to their consulting geologist's name, George Davenport. I put the full name of their company, Spyglass Energy Group LLC. I corrected the spelling of his name from Steve Bruner to Stephen Bruner. And I included an exhibit that identified, how many wells were on each track. And I sent Bill Lynn this list just yesterday and asked him if he would actually identify each of these wells that are on this exhibit that I prepared by name, well number, in section 10, quarter section, township and range, because I think the superintendent is going to need to know exact, instead of just saying 3 horizontal wells, we need to know it's horizontal well number such and such, and be very specific so that she'll know what she's approving the extension for each well. But Bill didn't open up the email, he overlooked it, didn't see it, but so this 2-page exhibit, although accurate, I'd like to have a summary of all the wells by well name, number, and track description to be a page 3 of this exhibit. Now, this, if you added up all the wells on this exhibit, we were originally talking about 18, one being the horizontal deep helium well, and then 17 horizontals and disposal wells. This list adds up to 26 wells, and the reason why is because 7 of these wells are water supply wells, freshwater wells that they drilled on surface land that would definitely not want to be plugged because the surface owners would surely want ownership of them. And their Spyglass is prepared to let them have the wells, and surely the superintendent wouldn't plug water wells. But, so there's this letter that the superintendent needs. Originally, it was drafted, I think, by Mr. Pipestein to go to the superintendent, but I felt like it really needs to be addressed to the council and the superintendent. So I sent this on to Mr. Pipestein midday yesterday. Abby has told me that she's received it, reviewed it, has some comments or some more tweaks to it, I guess, maybe the word. And so that's just what this is. We need to get something over to the superintendent that specifically states from Spyglass that we would like to have a delay in the plugging of the wells for 1 year, and that we will keep our bond in place. Now, what I fear is the superintendent might try to put more bonding requirements on them. She said she wouldn't, but there's $400,000 worth of plugging liability. And Spyglass is ready and prepared and capable of plugging these wells. I'm afraid, and all they have is a $50,000 blanket bond.
That was.
They don't have the $150,000 nation bond. It's just simply a $50,000 blanket bond that lets you operate a gazillion leases under one bond. And Spyglass would not want to do anything that would require them to increase their bonding requirement.
Yes, sir.
So that's what this is.
Okay.
And I'd like to hear from our council as to what they think about my
Can I ask you a question
editing of their
first?
draft.
Yes, council.
Okay, at the bottom of this page, it says Stephen Bruner. He should be presenting this. What I heard the superintendent say that we supported it through resolution, and I agree the resolution, I guess, has not been sent out. That was the end of our extent on this. We supported them not plugging it, maybe checking into it, see if there's a way they could extend the plugging. This is Stephen Bruner's side of the deal. He should be the one driving force on it,
He is.
not Paul Rebard's.
Paul Rebar's not doing anything. This mineral council is, and that's why I've got
Very
this letter
beginning,
here.
it says Paul's draft, excuse me, on the very top of that, it says Paul's draft.
Yeah.
So I think we've done our part. We passed the resolution. Now it's Steve Bruner's job to send a letter.
Yeah. But what Steve Bruner needed was to know exactly what the letter needs to say. Steve Bruner is just going along with what we want. He's helping us. Steve Bruner's helping us accomplish what we
You're
want.
helping Steve Bruner.
No, I'm not. You know, and I really don't appreciate, you know, your constant insinuation. I don't know Steve Bruner. I've never met him in my life. And I'm not helping Steve Bruner. Steve Bruner's helping us. He said, you all want to keep these wells from being plugged? Just tell me what I need to do. So we're giving him the exact wording. Will you send a letter to the superintendent? And here's what you need to say. And we're drafting it for him.
I'm
And
just
then we're
saying,
out of it.
I'm just saying, we passed the resolution.
So you're saying more than that, and I don't appreciate it. And you
I'm
better God stop it.
Well, I understand that, and I will understand something else too. You guys be good to each other. I handle a lot of business, and I know you do too. But, sitting right here, both of you have got concerns over something. And you said it was unanimous. That's incorrect. I voted no.
That's right. My apologies.
I have that right. I have little experience here myself. And I do understand this, is that we have to have them come in here. Any other place you sign a non-collusion agreement. You're seeing some processes now over constitutional values and living between them. I agree with Councilman Revard. You guys be a little careful what you say to each other. It gets a little heated. I want you to stop it, especially when it comes to this group. Especially when it comes to this one. With that being said, the council, all we're looking at is sending this, what will be the request and the motion? But you go right ahead first.
Okay. The way that I looked at this is that, the gentleman from Spyglass didn't know the specific language to make sure, and I think, Paul, you just probably helped him. And maybe is this the way it was presented that caused, the question? But I just want to make sure, is this the right language that needs to be sent over for,
Superintendent?
this letter that, will it hit all the marks that we don't get this well? That, we can say this from being plugged? Is that what I'm just trying to make sure that I understand what we said, because when I said you abstained, or you said no.
No, I voted no.
You voted no. So, I just want to make sure we got the right language in order to get what we want to get accomplished is if this well is still producing or has potential, that we don't plug it.
It's never produced.
Oh, okay. So, we just.
Isn't that correct?
No.
Some of the wells have produced.
No, in the big, deep well.
The deep well, never know.
Okay. And that's the only one on consideration. Councilwoman Ford.
First of all, just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, when we had this discussion at the last meeting and also eloquently explained the situation, the superintendent was very much, supportive of what we were trying to do, but she said herself, I will need a letter from the Minerals Council and the operator. The operator all along has been following instructions from the BIA to go ahead and plug these wells. So they're just kind of in a catch-22, between BIA and us right now. And like Councilmember Rivard said, the gentleman at Spyglass wasn't real sure exactly what that letter needed to say. We did. So I just want to make it very clear that Paul was just trying to help, word it so that it's what the superintendent needed.
At this time.
We gave that pass to our council. The council circulated to us, very vague, and they admitted this is a real bare bone, vague draft for us to consider. As far as I know, I'm the only damn 1/8 of us that even looked at it.
I would consider your language.
But I did look at it, and I made my proposed changes and circulated to all of you and our council for further comment, period. The reason my name's at the top of it, so it's not to be confused with our council's draft, that this is Paul's draft. The council presented one, I tweaked it, added a little more detail to it, sent it back out, and I said Paul's draft, period. I just want to satisfy the superintendent to accomplish what 7 of us wanted to accomplish. That's it.
Oh, I want to make one correction. when we first learned about these wells, I was first told they were capable of, the geologist told me they were capable of 200 barrels of production a day. However, the actual engineer working on it says 100 barrels a day. So I think someone just mentioned, are these wells capable of production? Yes, they were, to the tune of 100 barrels a day.
I asked him, has it produced?
Oh, okay.
And the answer is no.
He was.
No, well, the one well has not,
Okay.
but all of these wells together were producing, were capable of
Yes,
100 barrels.
I understand that completely.
But they're just not economical at $50 oil. They said we need at least 60 to be economical. Well, we have to believe that at some point, someday, maybe you would get to 60, and we've got 100 barrels a day. And the same thing happened with that other company, Jira. They came to us with those wells up north. 10, I think it was 10 wells that they had to buy propane at one price, propane, they could justify it. Below that price, they couldn't. Superintendent made them plug it. We all voted to let them plug them. I didn't, but the majority did, and it passed to plug them. Here we are again. We find out these wells are gonna be plugged. We just want time to evaluate them, and the superintendent seems agreeable. Mr. Bruner, I've not talked to him, never met him, but through his consultant, is willing to cooperate. And that's all, that's where we are with it.
Yes, I'd like to, Lacey, is there anything you wanted to add on that correction?
On this particular discussion, it was had that maybe we should perhaps let our legal counsel take care of the letter. And the council decided no, not to send it to legal counsel, to let Mr. Bruner, whatever his name is.
Come in.
Figure out the letter himself. I suggest sending him to the superintendent, she'll help him tell him what needs to be on the letter.
There you go.
Okay.
Cut out the middleman.
Councilman.
Thank you, Chairman. What I'm gathering here, I'm getting kind of confused. What do we need to do? We need to get Mr. Bruner here, or we need to send a letter on over to the superintendent, or what? What's the most important thing we need to do?
I don't think Mr. Bruner needs to be here. He's just trying to accommodate us. He said, I'll sign it, prepare the letter, I'll sign it.
Well, let's just get the letter ready and let him sign it.
He's not local.
Is that a motion?
I'm not making any motions. I just wait for the council to tell us more about this letter.
Okay,
My suggestion is for him to call the superintendent, ask what he wants, how she wants it worded, and then send him a letter, send her a letter. Did I say something wrong?
no, excuse me.
Okay.
We're gonna get off of this after Councilman Reddy.
Chairman, are you prepared to sign this letter?
Whatever my council agrees to.
Okay, the second question I have is, I would recommend we just do what our office manager's telling us.
That's correct.
Let's just do that and see what happens, and if we have to deal with it, put it back on the agenda for next meeting.
Yes, sir.
And
Councilman,
can we hear from our council?
we're getting ready to, so I'll figure it out. And
So, and I think it's already been kind of stated from my notes with the meeting last week. It was just that the superintendent needs something from Spyglass that reflects a letter that they are working with the Minerals Council and something from the Minerals Council. So to the degree the focus is on Councilman Reigard initiating the process, I think anything would actually have to reflect that he's working with the Minerals Council at their, and show more of the Minerals Council involvement or approval of the process.
Council, let's go on.
Let's go on, no action.
Motion to
It's
table.
up to the.
Motion to table on the floor. I need a second.
Table it.
A second.
So, I'm
Second.
sorry. I couldn't-
Table it.
Table it.
Yes, sir. I have a motion by Secretary Yates, seconded by Councilman Red Eagle. I'd like to table item 6B. I'd like to call for the question.
Discussion.
Yes, go ahead.
Can we put this on our next meeting that we will have a completed letter and everyone's looked at it, and that Mr. Brenner is supposed to have talked to the BIA, and then they can,
Yes, I'm not gonna add any much more comment to that.
I mean, when's it coming back
Let's
up?
just table it.
Table it
Table
again.
it?
Table it for this moment,
All right,
call for the question.
Councilman Red
Explain
Eagle,
to you.
Yes.
Councilman Rebar, Chairman Waller,
Yes.
Secretary Yates,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman,
No,
Councilwoman Gray,
yes.
Councilman Redcorn.
Yes.
Motion passes.
No. I have a correction of resolution 4276 on the John Long leases. I'd like to have that in form of motion, and it's over the legal, isn't it?
Yeah, they gave us the wrong legals.
They gave us the wrong legals. This is the one in which we will adjust, and I'll re-sign the resolution with your support.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor, Councilman Redigo, second by Councilman Redcorn. Call for the question, please.
Councilman Rebar,
Abstain.
Chairman Waller,
Yes.
Secretary Yates,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman,
yes,
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I'd also like to entertain a motion under 6D. I'd like to table my committee assignments.
So moved.
Second.
I have a second. I have a motion on the floor by Councilman Redcorn, seconded by Councilman Red Eagle. Call for the question, please.
Chairman Waller,
Yes.
Secretary Yates,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman,
yes,
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. With that, table it. I'd like to go into the OERB MOU. What was our last commitment? We just tabled it until we sent it out?
We tabled it. and-
That was it. They're going to have a quick look at it we had some questions over the right of the state encompassing too much of our sovereignty rights. And that's where it's at right now, so I won't need that in form of motion. Abby and Mr. Pops, Jim will get back to us on that specific issue. And then I'd like to go to item 6F, DMD, Councilwoman Foreman.
yes. Could you call up the DEMD document? Okay, I'm assuming all of you have had a chance to review this 3-page document. It is from the former director of the Fluids Group under DEMD, who has retired recently. And I'd like all of you, before I kind of get into this, all of you to keep a couple of things in perspective, which is what I do when I read through this. And I have compared, there's an org chart on this, it's kind of hard to read, but I think I can explain it. I have compared their org chart with what the PowerPoint presentation we got from the BIA. So we will have to enlarge that. But what I'd like for everyone to keep in perspective is that for 120 years, whoever it was before it was the BIA, plus the BIA,
Yes.
allowed wealth to be stolen from the Osage people. And they still are. We had to have the settlement, which was woefully inadequate for the damages that had been caused over 100 years. But don't forget, it's BIA bureaucratic management of our mineral estate that caused all of that.
And I filed the suit April 14, 2000 for an excess of $2.2 billion in your chair.
Right, so that's much closer to probably what if.
It was a conservative effort there.
Yeah. So, and then after the suit, they continue to mismanage, as is evident in the delayed permits, the production way down, and all the problems that we've had that we don't need to go into here. And I want to just remind everyone, well, most of you I don't think were there, but at the last Osage shareholders meeting, the chief got up and talked about the tariff. But one thing that stuck in my mind that day about what he said about funding, because that's always the biggest concern, funding from the BIA. He said, they appropriate these big money volumes, dollar amounts to tribes at the high levels, but by the time it trickles down to the lower levels, it's disappeared. And the last thing I want you to keep in perspective here, keep in the back of your mind here, is that I lost my train of thought on this. It's the money trickles down, we never see it, and with this, the presentation, and all I saw was the PowerPoint, said that it was a lateral move.
Yes.
Well, if you could push that chart up just a little teeny tiny bit where we see the whole thing. Okay. What Roger sent me, and I'm sure he just cut and pasted this off of the websites, DEMD currently, on the left-hand side of the page, reports, it shows, well, it says DEMD's new home. I'm not sure if that's DEMD currently. I'm not sure why it says new. But if you'll notice, those three boxes, DEMD on the bottom, those lines go straight up to a solid line, horizontal line. That means they report directly to the project or the, I think that is the assistant deputy or the deputy assistant secretary, who reports directly to the assistant secretary. So there's only one decision, right there. There's only one decision level that they have to go through to get to the secretary. Now, over on the right-hand side, if you, and I don't know if I'm going to hold up, but it's going to be easier for me to point this out. So, the Bureau of Indian Affairs here has to, they also report directly to the principal deputy. And this part right here is the very top, see that top line that comes down? Where the Bureau of Indian Affairs is repeated again up here. So they're putting the proposed move here that has to report to the director and then to the principal deputy. So they are inserting one level of decision making in this chart. What the BIA is telling us in their PowerPoint is it's a lateral move. That's not a lateral move, if that's how it's going to be. They are adding a level of bureaucracy to the DEMD. My concerns on that, keeping in mind what the chief said, first of all, with Terra, the BIA is going to start losing jobs, and they're going to start losing money because tribes are going to take over some of that stuff. So I have, just based upon my 35 years of experience in highly complicated organizational structures, they want that money that DMD's getting for their organization. They can promise, they can make all kinds of wonderful promises to us about, that we're going to get that money. Don't worry, we're going to take care of you. But once they get that money, like the chief said, it starts trickling different places. It gets reassigned and this is all my guess, but it's based upon my experience. So I have grave concerns about inserting another level of management to decide what happens to the money we depend on, as Councilmember Gray pointed out earlier. We only get X amount of money. It's not changed in decades. It's never changed. How much money we get to operate on. So we depend on DEMD for some of those funds. And they like us. We're probably the largest, oil and gas, well, I don't know, North Dakota might be competing with us on that, but we're one of the largest. So proportionally, we should get more money because we have a much larger estate, much larger
Reservation.
Reservation.
Well, they told me at NAIP that we were the largest and we should be getting a larger share of their funding.
Yeah. So, okay, if you'll go ahead, so that's kind of my first point. They're not being honest with us if they're telling us it's a lateral move, and if that's correct. Now here, just on the second page, and let's see, it should start. Yeah, tribal leadership. If you'll go ahead and scroll down. There, stop. DEMD is not the BIA. Multiple, and this kind of concerns me, the very first bullet point, multiple accounting office reports, general accounting office reports have documented problems with economic development within the BIA. DMD independence is very beneficial when interacting with industry and business groups. Independent group not constrained by this is DMD, it's not constrained by BIA organizational pressures and possible censorship. We've seen this happen already. You know, when the BIA is taking this, they're telling somehow there's influence, you know, to keep things from us, to not let DMD help us. Able to work, DMD is able to work independently in best interest of tribes and to advocate for tribes to further tribal economic development. DMD able to represent tribes better when dealing with all those different divisions. If you'll keep going down.
But wait,
Stop.
these are the two efforts of the BIA and the BIA trust. The OST is falling under this trust, just as a clarity of where it might be heading. So I just wanted to, that's what I was told just a couple of days ago.
DMD is advisory, not regulatory. We've got an automatic clash there.
Correct.
BIA, regulatory, DEMD advisory. Technical staff dedicated to assist tribes, no conflict of interest. Responsive to tribes' requests for assistance with resource assessments, economic evaluation, lease negotiations, no large bureaucracy, and problems associated with chain of command and jurisdictional problems. I think that's a huge concern. Able to interact with multiple agencies on behalf of tribes without department restrictions and limitations. They're able to customize projects. Keep going down. DEMD can advocate for the tribe in current assistant secretary location. Well, that goes away if we put it under the BIA. Limited internal pressure, and they do advocate for us, as we all know. Limited internal pressure, assist with economic and business development, which we're getting ready to find out about that here pretty quick with no grant. DMD project oriented, not involved with BIA regulatory oversight. Grant funding, and this is real important. And this is probably why the BIA wants them. Since they started, well, it's my understanding they started under the BIA first.
That's correct.
And then in
Out of Denver.
2006, they got separated out, just so there would be a group to focus on Indian, tribal energy, economic development. And when they were under the BIA in the beginning, back in 2003 or whenever it was, they had $500,000. Since they've been under the assistant secretary, they've gone up to $3 million. Funding that was allocated to DMD is spent within the DMD office and grants. No outside pressure to transfer funds. DEMD not competing within a larger organization for funds. DEMD project support has increased from 30 projects to more than 230 since 2006. And IEED independence from BIA. So those are some of the bullet point reasons that they're saying that maybe this wouldn't be such a great move. And one of the things that they said we could do is pass a resolution against the proposed move if we as a council, you know, agree on that sort of thing. They give some things, some bullet points here on the last page of what we could do. But to me, it's just coming to a consensus as a council on whether we support this or not. All of you have access to this document. If you want to call Roger Knight, I'm sure he'd be glad to talk to you, or Jerry Gazella. But I just wanted to make sure we went over this and saw another side of this. And I know that Councilmember Yates had said earlier that they're just trying to protect their jobs. Their jobs are protected. They're just going to be moved and moved down and have to deal with more bureaucracy from a group that might have conflicts of interest. So that's all I have to say on it. And I encourage you to think about these things heavily before, you know, and compare them with.
Well, Tuesday morning, we can call them out, just at point blank, throw some of these bullet points
Actually,
at them.
this that we've reviewed, there is one effort, and I'm not finding it right off. There's something that we have to look at, that was brought up to the Department of Energy because of our DMD grants. We received the one that was taken, from the former council that we applied for and got, 274. Then we received 2 more, now we're on our 3rd. What I talked to them about is that the nation will be under the sovereign element of the 638 contract. I will demand on Tuesday that we are allowed our representation as what we were delivered before DMD, and that's as a direct service contract. And that's where I was wanting this council to identify your funding and demand it with these items here. That's all I got to say. Council? Sorry. With that, we'll take it up on the 10th, bring it ready, and we'll have that handed out.
Meeting tomorrow, right?
Ma'am?
Meeting's tomorrow, isn't it?
No.
Oh, it's the-
Wait a second, flag girl.
That's right.
Wait a second, jet lag.
Wait
I'm
a
sad.
minute.
Okay, I gotta just on the record. They called me by Councilwoman Gray on something the other day, and they asked me, so I said, my God, she's had no sleep. We contact each other. One of our personnel, and I just said, her and I are getting off planes. Don't call us. Give us about a day. That's why I asked you for your concern the other day, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't weather that last trip too well. With that being said, we'll take that to the 10th. We do not have meetings the 11th that we were looking at structuring. Everything's going to talk to us after the meeting that morning at Harbor Hall.
Who is?
The government on the pre-consultation meeting. They've asked, instead of us setting up the next day for them, that they're gonna find time to meet with the Osage while we're all right there. And I didn't set up a time or date or anything, but honestly, they're only gonna spend very little time on what they're gonna roll out. Last comment, there's a couple issues that we are getting questioned about. No, we have not signed a TERA. Also, the next question come out is sometimes when a TERA comes up, some of us have been on there so long, right now they've done a new TERA law, but it's not the TERA of this point. It's an old acronym, so I just didn't want to get confused. With that being said, I'd like to go on to the last minute meetings, item number 7.
I have a motion. Approve the meeting minutes.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Second, I have a motion on the floor by Councilman Red Eagle, seconded by Councilman Redcorn to approve the minute meetings. Call for the question, please.
Secretary Yates,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar,
Yes.
Chairman Wallace.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Like to entertain motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. I'll second that. I have a motion on the floor by Councilman Redcorn, seconded by Chairman Wallace. Call for the question, please.
Councilwoman Foreman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar,
Yes.
Chairman Wallace,
Yes.
Secretary Yates.
Yes.
Motion
Go
passes.
home and rest. Thank you. Right order. Thank you very much.
I love it.